It's another Dublin Mayo All-Ireland final. It's the 7th instalment of this incredible rivalry. Welcome to Talking Points, our GAA show here on Balls.ie in partnership with Sky Sports. I'm Mick McCarthy. I'm joined this week by Gavin Cooney. I'm delighted to say that we're also joined by two-time All-Star and one of the star forwards in the game of Gaelic football, Conor McManus of Monaghan.
Conor, thank you. Thanks.
Bit of a disappointing weekend after all the build-up in the end?
Probably from a neutral's point of view, the way the game's turned out. I still think the Kerry Mayo game was quite entertaining. You know, watching it at home. You know, it's the whole talk coming into the week was the tactics and the tweaks that may be made and things like that. There, as it turned out, Mayo went same again, and you know they were very impressive. I think Kerry would probably look back on it thinking they might have got it wrong. But I'd say they're still the best team, come out on top there. In terms of Dublin Tyrone, I think just Dublin flexed their muscles yesterday and showed us all how good they really are.
So 4 months of Championship football has given us a repeat of last year's All-Ireland final. We'll begin on looking back at how that happened with Mayo Kerry. It was a 5-point win for Mayo, and Andy Moran scored a goal that this man beside me would have been proud of.
Yeah, and the symmetry between Killian and Andy Moran is actually crucial for this team this year. They're really working very well. Two very, very clever players. You can see a very good ball in from Conor Loft. That's a great take from Andy Moran out in front. And just what the goal for goal from early out. And the timing, the understanding. And that goal, just one thing, and I know Senan pointed this out as well. Watch it, I know it's a basic thing. Left-hand hand pass. Timing, left-hand hand pass from Andy. They're just basic skills that they've developed to get themselves a more rounded player. You know, if that was with the right hand, there might have been a better chance of interception or whatever it is. Small things, but that's what created that goal.
That was Andy Moran's 157th appearance for Mayo. Conor, could he be Footballer of the Year?
He's certainly going to give it a great run. You know, I suppose it's a credit to Andy. You know, after doing his crusade, I think 3 or 4 years ago, to come back and to be at the level that he's at now, and he's going better than ever now. So he definitely has a chance. I think it's probably between himself and Colin Boyle on the Mayo side of things, and probably Con Callahan and a few others in the Dubs.
Yeah.
You've been through many kind of qualifier odysseys with Monaghan over the years. It's funny, you can see Mayo, like obviously starting off in disarray earlier on in the year, kind of gradually getting stronger, and the last 3 games now they've looked as good as they've ever been. Is there something to kind of just getting those games under your belt as the year goes on that just gets you going? Yeah,
well, if you look at Mayo over the last number of years, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years, it would have been levelled against them that they were coming into All-Ireland quarterfinals, All-Ireland semi-finals undercooked. They were getting it too easy in Connacht. Now the last 2 years they've gone on the exact opposite route. And it seems to have stood them in good stead, particularly this year. They've unearthed a couple of players there have come on, like the likes of Conor Loftus coming in at the weekend has been very good for them. So they seem to have maybe got pulled together a better panel now than maybe they would have had in previous years, and it seems to be working for them.
Yeah, I think were Kerry a bit undercooked?
You could argue that there, but I suppose they probably had the Galway game to get that out of their system. You probably didn't expect Kerry to maybe be as poor as they were, particularly after having had a drawn game as well, to get things right the second day. But you know, massive credit has to go to Mayo there in that front. Yeah.
So Mayo's I think performances growing over the season is and how they'll go into the All-Ireland is one talking point. Unfortunately, another talking point from the game was the performance of David Goff, the referee. There ended up being 3 red cards, 2 black cards, 13 I think yellow cards over the course of the game, and it was a point of discussion after the game on Sky Sports with Peter Canavan and James Horan.
Now, some of the cards were merited and some of them were certainly not. I felt that Darren O'Sullivan was very unlucky. Now, for a linesman or a referee that has played the game, it's natural that there's going to be contact at times. Darren O'Sullivan is going at full speed trying to chase someone down the line. Killian has come across him. You can argue Killian maybe knew what he was doing. Whether he did or not, I don't think it mattered. Look at the reaction that Darren O'Sullivan gave to that. I think so harsh.
We got to come in that. That to me is an absolutely ridiculous decision by David Goff. Absolutely ridiculous. Killian was running out this way, and Darren O'Sullivan was running that way. Absolutely crazy.
On the other hand, this is what black cards are for. It was a deliberate pull down, and Killian knew he took one for the team there. There was a chance of an overlap, a chance of a goal, and you could have no excuses. The referee got that one spot on.
It's a good black card, that one, because there was a time in the game when Kerry were just coming back at them and getting a bit of momentum.
Yeah, so plenty of cards, plenty of physicality, as you can see.
And this, I think this is the last one here with Kieran Donaghy. You can see after a score, I think Aidan might have stood on his toe accidentally or intentionally, not sure. Kieran Donaghy reacts and there's a sort of a double hit there into the face, straight right.
I think Aidan may have known what he was doing there, but Donaghy's lashing out. It was the final actions of a man who realised he had one more chance to get to an All-Ireland final, Rachel, and he was seeing that slip away, and it was down to frustration and nothing else. But again, the referee was spot on.
I think we do need to mention there was so many black cards today. I thought David Goff had a poor day overall. I've got to say, I think there was too much of the referee. Wanted to see too much of the referee in that game. He wanted. It seemed to me he wanted to be one of the central characters, and I think I don't know if he handled that game that well.
I don't know if you could say much what he could do really about the Kieran Donaghy one in particular, but you kind of disagree with James's point there.
I kind of want to defend Goff for a minute, because ever since the All-Ireland quarter-finals have started, the black card has been kind of ignored. And while, maybe the rule should go for next year's championship, it is still a rule. And at least he had the bravery to give black cards. The Darren O'Sullivan one he got wrong, but maybe the Killian O'Connor one he got right. And like in yesterday's game, David Coldrick didn't give any, and Conor Callahan and I think Niall Scully it was. I mean, they were probably black card incidents, and while Dublin were cruising and would have won the game anyway, would have made it a little bit difficult for them. I don't know where you stand on that.
Yeah, it's difficult for David Goff, and I suppose that the key thing there is, if you're and being at the game, you would have seen it more. But before the game started, there was a lot of niggle. Boys before the ball was thrown in, there was a lot of niggle and boys going at each other off the ball. Replays are probably notoriously hard to manage. There's an overspill from the week before and things like that there. So David Goff probably had a tricky job in trying to keep the thing calm down and tone the thing down, and maybe a few early cards is what he maybe felt was trying to bring the game under control. But it's a tricky situation now for a referee.
Yeah, and I remember I was at the Connacht final that was ref by Goff, and he was always pulling up defenders on little niggly pulls on forwards off the ball. As a forward, he seems to almost be a referee that's kinder to forwards than defenders. I don't know, obviously you strongly disagree, obviously.
He's not kind enough. None of them are. No, again, it goes back to, even the likes of the linesman there was it Darren O'Sullivan's decision? Yeah. That it was the linesman that called David Goff into that. He's only following instruction there, and I suppose, be it for right or wrong on that occasion, I think the referees need to get more help from their assistants, from their umpires, from their linesmen. Just makes their job a lot easier.
How do you feel about, the yellow card, I think, and obviously a bad black card decision is sort of one of the talking points about David Goff, but the black card in general, as Gavin said, it's almost been phased out in the latter part of the championship. I remember watching you guys against Fermanagh in the first game and Kieran Hughes gone off after 8 minutes for something that it was technically a black card offence, but had no effect on the game or the player, something like that. Is it something that players like or dislike?
No, I think players would. Most players now, I can only speak for myself, but I think players want to see it gone at this stage. It has come in, it has been tried. It doesn't generally work. You spend so much time after big games talking about black cards, and that's not what people want to be talking about after these games. I think, in the case of a professional foul or something like that there, when somebody's going through on goal, bring in a rule that maybe it's a red card and a penalty or something like that there. For the lesser things out the field, for example, the Kieran Hughes one in the early doors in the championship, give them a yellow card, give the two of them a yellow card and let them get on with the game. Yeah.
I'd say there needs to be something though, because I remember the end of the 2013 All-Ireland final when Mayo were trying to come back into it, and I was at that match just looking down at Dublin, just rugby tackling lads all over the field, and Mayo couldn't get any momentum. So I think that's one of the main reasons why there's something needed, but it's probably failing. Well, speaking of Dublin, they had a stroll in the park, stroll in Crow Park, I suppose, in yesterday against a 12-point win over Tyrone. I don't think that's the kind of performance we were expecting, or the kind of easy win we were expecting. One of the heroes of the day, probably the championship even so far, Conor Callahan. He probably ended this game in the 5th minute with a spectacular goal, which the lads on Sky Sports analysed after the game.
You're going to break it down first, because you can see from the very start what Dublin are doing off Tyrone's kickouts. High press on Niall Morgan, although he does very well ultimately to find his own man.
Yeah, that's right. Niall Morgan kicking the ball out. But look, we talk with Dublin play with 4 up. They certainly are. And they still have 3, another 3. So they're 7 inside the Tyrone 45. And unlike the mistake that they made a couple of years against Donegal, they're not pushing everybody up. They're keeping 2 men at the back there, Brent, so that if they don't win the ball, they're able to get back very quickly. So a fantastic kick out by Niall Morgan to win possession. And for Tyrone to go forward, we talked about speed, we talked about purpose and options for the man in the ball. And in this case, we give it away much too easily. And
okay.
That's the mistake that leads to this.
As one of the greatest attackers ever to play the game, talk us through this Conor O'Callaghan goal without your Tyrone hat on.
Well, first of all, there's Conor O'Callaghan on the ball. He has got movement from other players. I think it's Paddy Anders makes this run to take a thrown player out of it. But you'll see that there's still another thrown player in front of him. Most players at this stage would have elected, right, the point's on, I'm going to tap it over. Ronan McNamee goes to try and block him. One side step, fantastic play, and the rest, I don't think any goalkeeper in Ireland would have saved that there. So, fantastic finish. But the origin of it, Brian, came from sloppy thrown play when they've done really well to win their own kick out.
Yeah, Conor's accelerating himself to the true sign of a GA superstar in the sense that he's known universally by his first name. So Conor, how good is Con?
Yeah, he's good. He's very good. I suppose that the biggest compliment you can pay him at the minute, and it's a fairly obvious one, he's keeping the likes of Bernard Brogan, Paul Flynn, Diarmuid Connolly, Kevin McManaman, Owen O'Gara, Cormac Costello, all out of a place in
6 forwards.
the Dublin team. So, yeah, like he's you know, for a fella that's playing in his first year in the championship, he looks like he's playing 5 or 6 years with the Dubs there. He's fitted into place really well, and he's not just chipping in with an odd score. He's leading the line for them, so he's flying for them.
Yeah, you mentioned Connolly there. It was quite a quiet day in Croke Park yesterday, I think, after that O'Callaghan goal. And probably the biggest cheer was when Hill 16 thought they were finally seeing the return of Diarmuid Connolly. Turned out it was Eric Lowndes, you know, wearing number 12. Probably doesn't say a lot about the Dublin fans. So
I think the Dubs fans boycott is obviously extending to match programmes as well. They didn't realise Connolly at 20-something.
But that's how much they just want them to come back a hero to Hill. But that list of forwards that you named there is just incredible. And you add even Eric Lowndes onto that, who wasn't in the starting forward. Like that's the best 6 forwards in the country if you put them together as a group somewhere else, isn't it?
The depth they have is unbelievable, and that's where their strength is really. Like, if that game had been tighter with 15-20 minutes to go yesterday, the fact that they can bring them lads on, it's going to be very difficult for teams to live with that, you know, as a going forward.
Yeah, Tyrone were never really in the game, and obviously you guys struggle against Dublin in the quarter-final. This is the most basic of questions, but as a forward yourself, how difficult is it to play against this Dublin defence? Yeah,
well, it is difficult. It's more the way that Dublin play, more so than anything else, because most teams feel like they have to get men back and protect their own goals, and it doesn't seem to faze Dublin. I think they kept the ball yesterday for maybe 2 minutes or 2 minutes and 10 seconds at one stage, where they just kept the ball moving over and back, pulling players out of position, dragging them, you know, out wide, cutting lines, cutting angles, and then they just pop over a score. Like, so it's difficult from that sense, and if you do happen to turn them over, you know, if you're a forward up in the Dublin defence, you're probably isolated, and that probably happened to Rome, probably even maybe more so than ourselves in a couple of weeks ago, that they found themselves very much isolated with Mark Bradley up front, and it's very hard to penetrate when you've only, you know, a few men up top, you know.
There's going to be a narrative going into this final that Mayo are battle hardened and have been through the mill, whereas Dublin have sauntered in. I think the closest game they have was 9 points in the Leinster final, which was a late goal. You've played against them in the quarter final. You were there yesterday watching Tyrone, a team you know very well. One theory I have is that these teams, that you've put it up to them as much as possible, and Dublin are just that much better, and maybe this is their year when they're 10 points better than everybody else, and it's not about them not having been tested or having an easy side of the draw or anything like that, they're that good. Would you agree with that?
Like, you can't argue with what Dublin have done so far. They can only beat what comes in front of them, and so far it's been more than comfortable, everything they've done. I do think Mayo, of all the teams in Ireland, and they've proved that over the last number of years, that they can consistently put it up to the Dubs. You know, you go back only 12 months, 2 own goals in an All-Ireland final, like, it's nearly unheard of, and they were still within a kick of a ball of winning that game. So I do think Mayo, of all teams, are better equipped to deal with the Dubs.
Yeah, we'll come back to Mayo and predictions for the All-Ireland final at the end of the show. But there was a poignant moment at the end of yesterday's semi-final. Sean Kavanagh's watch has ended. The curtain comes down on one of the greatest careers in Gaelic football. And there were lovely scenes after the game at Croke Park, and then Peter Canavan paid tribute to his former colleague on Sky Sports.
And now we will have 3 weeks for the hype to build, for the analysis to begin, and for the strengths and weaknesses of Dublin and Mayo to be picked apart to the nth degree. Plenty to think about for the likes of Mickey Hart.
Yeah, you can just see again, Sean Kavanagh, he's trying to get back out on his team, but each of the Dublin players want to shake his hand. Even for what all they've achieved, they know he'll be remembered as one of the greats of all time, and they want to say that they're the passing part to him.
Today, from my own point of view, a very emotional day too, because it could be the last game for Sean Kavanagh, a man that I fought with on the pitch, responsible to a large degree in Thrones 3 All-Ireland wins, 03, 05 and 08. So to see him, and I still believe he's a role to play in this side. Even next year, it may be limited, it may be coming off, but he's too good to leave off. I think he still has something to offer. So this will not sit easily on the shoulders of the young men that played here today. They've learned a harsh lesson against an absolutely fantastic Dublin side, and I'm sure they'll come back stronger for it.
Well, it is the end for Sean Kavanagh. He, the lads weren't quite sure there, but he tweeted a kind of a very nice farewell message on Twitter last night. Sean Kavanagh, Conor, someone you've come up against a good few times, I would say, over the years, of rather famous moments that we all remember.
That's the one that everybody goes back to. But
legend, though, isn't he?
Yeah, what he's done for Tyrone, over the years, and the longevity of his career, 16 or 17 years, and he's been involved in probably 3 different Tyrone teams. The first one where they won in 03 and 05, and then basically a new team in 08 again, and then this team again here. And he's probably been the leader of that team. So yeah, his career, and I think somebody was tweeting about his achievements and his list of honours last night. It's it's impressive, and he'll be a big loss to.
There you are. Yeah. So so I think the game will miss Sean Kavanagh. We just have time quickly. We'll talk about the All-Ireland final with Conor, but our favourite part of the show, the most important part of the show, fan of the week. There wasn't actually many candidates this week. It was we're running out of fans. Tough week for it. There was another banner on the hill for Dermot Connolly, but we already had the Blue Panther one, so it's unoriginal. We had the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar ending a pretty full sporting weekend for him by going to Croke Park to support his beloved Dubs. And but there can only be one winner, Gavin.
It's Aidan O'Shea, heroically picking himself out of a hospital bed to make his way down Jones's Road to the All-Ireland semi-final yesterday. I think he might have wished both eyes closed over during that Dublin performance.
That's commitment to the game he loves, though. He a long night.
Yeah,
long night,
there were pictures of Stephen Rochford up in the stands looking, looking pretty glum as you realise, it's Dublin again.
This is who I have to come with. This is what I have to deal with. So I think that brings us on actually nicely to how Mayo do it. You touched on it already, that they one thing that Mayo do have going for them is that they believe and they know they can beat Dublin.
Yeah,
nobody else can do that really.
No, and Mayo have consistently been, as I said, the team that has put it up to the Dubs the best over the last number of years. And they will have no fears, For Mayo, most people are going to be picking the Dubs to win anyway. If they lose another one, really and truly, what's another one to them at this stage? They've lost a few more already.
That's a good way of thinking it,
yeah. It's a shot to nothing for them, and they will be confident that they can turn over Dublin. They have the pace, they have the power, they have the players to trouble Dublin. We've seen that over the years, so I wouldn't be one bit surprised if they go ahead and do it.
Yeah. You can't contain Dublin, I think, is the lesson that we've learnt all this year. There's no point in putting 14 men behind the ball at all times, because they're just too good and they'll run off each other and kick points from everywhere, basically. So go for it.
Yeah, and Mayo have done that this last number of years, and particularly in the 2 All-Ireland finals last year. Mayo have went out, they've attacked Dublin, and I'm sure they'll do something similar again.
Yeah, won't see Aidan O'Shea full back again, will we?
He's doubtful now.
Right, well, that's it. It could be a pretty historic year if Mayo win and you have either Galway or Waterford winning the hurling. There's going to be an amazing story either, or you'll just have Dublin win the All-Ireland again, and we'll just we'll end the year as we always do, I suppose. But we will be back next week to look back on the hurling final. Either Waterford or Galway will be All-Ireland champions, so it's going to be pretty amazing either way. We'll be back then. My thanks to Gavin, and special thanks to you, Conor. Thanks very much for coming in. We'll see you next time.